Hello there, V from Movie Center here, ready to dive into one of the most epic action dramas of 2022, The Woman King. This movie is a true masterpiece that is sure to leave you on the edge of your seat, so buckle up and get ready for a wild ride. The movie opens in West Africa in the year 1823, where we see that the kingdom of Dahomey has just crowned a young and handsome king, Gizo. But trouble is brewing as their enemies, the Oyo Empire, have teamed up with the Mahi people to capture and sell innocent Dahomey villagers to European slave traders. Talk about a sinister collaboration. Now, the Oyo have a deadly advantage with their fancy guns and speedy horses, while the Dahomey have a secret weapon up their sleeve, which is a group of fearless female Amazon warriors called the Agoji, led by the beautiful and motherfuckingly amazing and strong General Nanisca. These ladies are not to be messed with. In a daring move, the Agoji infiltrate a Mahi village, slicing and dicing their way through the enemy's soldiers like a hot knife through butter. They eventually stumble upon the captured villagers and set them free. Sorry, that's a Minecraft voice. Because that's just how they roll. Now the next morning, the warriors pay their respects to their fallen comrades and escort the grateful captives back home. But the danger is far from over. The Oyo are still on the prowl, ready to strike at any moment. Thankfully, King Gizo recognizes General Nanisca as his most trusted soldier, and we know she's got the skills to pay the bills. Elsewhere, a young woman named Nawi is brought before a man who is old enough to be her grandpa and has the personality of a sledgehammer. Nawi understandably doesn't show much interest, but this guy doesn't take rejection well and decides to resort to violence, giving Nawi a good old-fashioned slap. Well, it turns out that Nawi is not one to take things lying down, and she pushes the brute hard enough to send him tumbling, like Jack on that one hill. Naturally, the man is not impressed with this display of strength and decides to back out of the marriage. Nawi's father, feeling that his daughter has missed out on a great opportunity, decides to take her to Agoji and offer her to the king. This leads to Nawi being taken in by a fierce Agoji soldier named Izugi. Meanwhile, the Oyo soldiers, led by General Obaid, stumble upon the corpses of their fallen comrades. Obaid is not pleased with this turn of events and decides to insult his troops for getting taken out by women. The soldiers then start plotting their next move against the kingdom of Dahomey. But wait, there's more. Gizo, the king of Dahomey, decides to hold a council meeting to discuss the threat posed by the Oyo soldiers. However, things take an unexpected turn when Nanisca brings up the issue of the slave trade. She argues that it's a stain on their kingdom's reputation to be selling their own people into slavery, and proposes that they switch to trading in gold or palm oil instead. Gizo, being a reasonable fellow, asks Nanisca to show him how much palm oil they can produce before he makes a decision. Later on, Nanisca's right-hand woman, Amenza, giving a fiery speech to the new Agoji recruits, is basically saying, "Welcome to the army, ladies. You're about to fight for your kingdom and potentially die. No big deal." Some of the women are like, peace out. But a big group, including our gal here, Nawi, decide to stick around. Nawi is eager to jump right into training with a bladed weapon, but Nanisca, the tough-as-nails leader of the Agoji, has her start with ropes. Nawi is like, "Seriously? I'm ready to slice and dice." But eventually Nanisca lets her take a swing at a wooden statue, which she promptly decapitates. Unfortunately, the sword is too heavy for her, and Nanisca shows her how it's done by taking out the statue's head with one swing. At night, Nawi gets some wisdom from Izugi, who tells her how her mother allowed her to be abused by men until she learned to fight back. The women continue their training with running, firing rifles, and learning combat skills, etc., etc. Later on, Izugi tells Nawi about Nanisca's legendary status as a former captive who rose up to become a leader. Pretty impressive if you ask me. Later on, we see Amenza paying a visit to Nanisca in her humble abode. But hold on, what is this? Amenza is using special nuts to see visions of the future. Apparently, someone from Nanisca's past is about to make a comeback. Meanwhile, outside, Nawi is busy practicing her sword-wielding skills on a statue. You know, just casual warrior stuff. But things take a dramatic turn when the Oyo tribe arrives at the kingdom gates to have a little chat with Gizo. Nanisca is horrified when she sees Obaid step forward to seize the guy who repeatedly raped her when she was his captive. It turns out that Amenza's visions was spot on. This was definitely someone from Nanisca's past. The Oyo demand tributes and 40 Agoji warriors, but Gizo is only willing to give up 20. Just when things couldn't get any more intense, a group of Portuguese settlers led by Captain Sanpo Ferreira and his friend Malik Zain arrive in Africa. Malik's mother was Dahomey, so he feels particularly horrified when he sees the captured natives. As the Agoji confront the Oyo, Naniska boldly declares that they will not be giving them any tributes. Instead, she serves up the severed heads of Uba Aid's men on a silver platter. As expected, a fight breaks out between the two tribes. Nawi sees an opportunity to free the captives, but Naniska is not pleased with this deviation from their plan, However, Amenza pulls Naniska aside and reveals that it was actually her who deviated from the plan as she was too busy trying to take down Uba Aid. Looks like our heroines have a little bit of conflict to work through. Anyway, later on, Ferreira, Roche, and Zayn Malik are up to no good as they discuss plans with Uba Aid and his soldiers to invade Dahomey and capture more villagers to sell off. But Malik seems to be having second thoughts about their slaving ways, and who can blame him? After the meeting, Malik decides to take a refreshing dip in the water. But, oh no, he is caught in the buff by Nawi. She is not too happy about what she thinks he's up to and accuses him of being a slaver, but Malik denies it and shares that he actually has Dahomey heritage. To prove it, he even gives her a piece of jewelry. Smooth move, Malik. Next up, the kingdom holds a small tournament for the Agoji trainees. They have to navigate through an obstacle course involving thorn bushes, climbing a wall, fighting enemies, and finally decapitating one of the statues. And the winner is, drumroll please, Nawi. Geizo acknowledges her skill and talent, and rightfully so because she's a total badass. But wait, there's more. Naniska tends to Nawi's wounds after the tournament and notices something on the girl's arm. And who follows Naniska back to her room? Amenza. Naniska asks her about the child she gave up. She suspects that Nawi might be the child she gave up long ago, and things are starting to get juicy. Later on, Ferreira and Geizo are discussing the potential end of Dahomey's involvement in the slave trade. Ferreira, being the shrewd businessman that he is, knows that his riches come from the trade and doesn't want to lose his wealth and power. But Geizo isn't backing down either, reminding Ferreira that if the Europeans can't protect them anymore, then they are also left vulnerable. It's a very tense exchange, as you might witness right here, with both sides very unwilling to budge. Anyway, our eagle-eyed Izugi is picking up on some flirtatious vibes between Nawi and Malik. Ooh la la. They have a secret meeting where Nawi gives Malik a totem for protection. How sweet. But of course, Malik is caught off guard and has nothing to offer Nawi in return. Smooth move, buddy. But fear not, Nawi takes one of his knives as a memento instead. Romance in the air, knives on the table. What could possibly go wrong? Later on, Nawi decides to take a little dip in the river to wash off the sweat from her latest mission. But as luck would have it, she runs into Naniska, who is not too pleased with Nawi sneaking off to see Malik. A little argument ensues, as these things tend to do, but then Naniska drops a bombshell. She tells Nawi about the baby she had to give up, which is a product of rape. The baby's left arm was cut, and a sharp tooth was stuck in it before she was given away. And just when you thought things couldn't get any crazier, Naniska pulls a similar tooth out of Nawi's arm, revealing that Nawi is her long-lost daughter and the daughter of Uba Aid as well. Nawi is in disbelief, and who could blame her? But the drama doesn't end there, my friends. The next day, Naniska and some of her soldiers decide to have a little fun with the Oyo camp. They set fire to their gunpowder, causing multiple explosions and scaring their horses away, leaving them vulnerable to an attack from the Agoji. And boy do they attack. The battle is fierce and bloody, leaving many Oyo and Agoji dead in the wake. Izugi and Nawi, along with some other women, are captured and put in a wagon to be taken away. But Nawi, being the badass warrior that she is, notices that one of the woman's binds have come loose and encourages her to roll off the cart and run back to Dahomey. As if all of that action wasn't enough, Nawi also takes it upon herself to help Izugi fix her broken arm while they're held captive. Talk about a multitasking queen. The woman eventually returns to Dahomey and spills the tea to Naniska about the Oyo's plan to get revenge on the Agoji. You know what they say, loose lips, sink ships. Geizo promotes Naniska for her efforts, but then puts the kibosh on any further action. But of course, Naniska and Amenza can't just sit on their hands, so they decide to take matters into their own hands and rescue the others behind Geizo's back. But things take a turn for the worse when the European slaves show up to claim their property. Now Izugi and Nawi are not about to go down without a fight, so they initiate a fight with the slavers. Unfortunately, Izugi ends up taking a bullet and dies in Nawi's arm. Cue the waterworks as Nawi wails for her fallen sister. But the drama doesn't stop there. Nawi gets thrown into the clink, but then Malik swoops in to save the day. He tells her that the captives are being shipped off to England and he wants to protect her. Aw, how sweet. Later on, Naniska leads her warriors into battle against the European camp. And you know what they say, if you can beat them, burn their camp down. The warriors set the camp ablaze and attack the unsuspecting men, freeing the captives in the process. But things take a dark turn when Malik turns on Ferreira and the captives drag him into the water to give him a not-so-friendly swim. Spoiler alert, he doesn't make it. But the real star of the show is really Nanisca, who faces off against the big bad Uba 8 himself, Awu. He tries to give her a beatdown, bang bang bang, but she's not having any of it. Nanisca overpowers him, and takes him out like a boss, impaling him with her weapon and finally putting an end to his reign of terror. Back home, Nanisca's actions have not gotten noticed. Sure, she may have disobeyed Geizo's orders, but he can't deny that she's a badass warrior who gets things done. Now that she has ended the Oyo Empire, Geizo even promotes her to the title of Woman King, and the crowd goes wild. And let's not forget about Nawi, who pays tribute to Izogi with Nanisca by her side. Nanisca addresses Nawi as her daughter, and the two have a little mother-daughter moment together, and it's cute. The two then join the others and celebrate their victory together. And so, babies, this is the story of the Woman King. See you next time. Love you.